Hi, everyone. Samantha Varner here from Prosymmetry. For those who are not familiar with us, welcome to our co-sponsored webinar today with Prosymmetry and Scaled Agile Inc. We are really excited to bring this conversation to you, maximizing strategic flow through portfolio capacity planning. And really today, I can't imagine having two more well-qualified people to talk to you about this subject. So from the Scaled Agile world, we have Jim Fowler, who is a strategic advisor and SPCT. I am told that everyone here is going to know what that means, so that's really exciting. And then from the Prosymmetry side of the house, we have Lloyd Norman. He is our Vice President of Strategic Solutions with Prosymmetry. Our software is Tempest Resource, so you may have heard about that before as well. But we're really excited to bring this conversation to you today. Of course, a few housekeeping items before we get started. You will receive a recording of this webinar. So if you have to jump off early or you want to go back to it, yes, you will be receiving a recording of this webinar, probably about tomorrow or so. It will be available on our YouTube channel. And of course, you will get the link to that video as well. Additionally, we will be taking questions at the end. So if you have any questions, please submit them through the question box. I will be fielding those as they come in, and we will be answering questions at the end. So video will be sent your way, of course, and then questions at the end. And I think with that said, Jim and Lloyd, we are good to go ahead and get started. So I hope you guys enjoy the conversation today.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Get my screen sharing here. All right. Yes. So welcome everyone. Great to see you and have you along, and look forward to spending the next 45 minutes or so with you, going through a little bit of content and answering some questions. So let's get jumped right in. I'm going to start off with a question first for everybody, which is, what is the goal of Agile in an enterprise? I've had lots of people tell me, different things of what they think the goals of Agile are. Usually hear things around, autonomy of the teams, give teams autonomy and they'll, produce faster and better quality products. Things like delivering faster, better efficiency, better productivity for the teams, and just really centered around creating those high performing teams. So really it ends up being all around that high performing team, a team that really works well together. They're all running down a path. They're running fast. They're a smooth oiled machine that just really knows how to execute and really knows how to deliver and how to deliver well. And it doesn't matter if it's software, doesn't matter if it's hardware, could be cyber physical systems. It tends to be really focused around those agile teams, which really stems back to kind of the foundations of the agile movement, which really started, with software and small teams focused around, smaller types of products in the organizations. And it's really a great place to be. I've worked with several high-performing teams, all over the place, and it really is, once you've experienced that as a team, you really don't want to work any other way. I've had the opportunity of working with very high-performing teams, and then going to a more traditional way of working, shall we say, and it's a drastic difference, and definitely want to stay in those highly high-performing agile teams. But the question that I want you to ask and go a little bit deeper is, does it really matter if we have a high-performing team if that high-performing team might not be running down the right path? How do we know that the team in this whole world and maze of product delivery and customer satisfaction and the demands of the customers and the need to fulfill specific customer needs for their specific problems in their specific context, if we have a super high performing team, but they pick the wrong path to run down, is it really agile? Is that truly agile from the sense of the overall business and the organization? And so to me, in answering that question of what does agile mean in the enterprise, yes, there is a component of that individual team agility, and the team agility absolutely has to be there. We have to have autonomy with the teams. We have to have high performing teams, but we also need to make sure that those teams understand the right path that they need to run down and the right direction and what it means to truly focus on the customer and understand that the customer centricity towards the benefit of the customer as well as the benefit of the organization. So really, when it comes to the enterprise as a whole, the true goal is what we term as business agility. So within SAFe, we talk about the business agility value stream, which is really focused around understanding that, yes, we need these high-performing teams, but we need them organized in a way that gets them focused on that right path, that really helps the business to be listening to the market, listening to the customers, sensing when there's opportunities, when there's a potential change in the market or a change in the customer's needs, and then being able to rapidly respond around that. So taking those high-performing teams, getting them aligned in the right direction, generating hypothesis of value that we believe, hey, this is going to be beneficial, and then quickly being able to validate that using these high-performing teams, and then find very quickly when things, yeah, we were on the right track there, let's go ahead and move forward down that path, or, well, maybe we found ourselves wandering down the wrong path and it wasn't quite right, and we need to adapt to that and be able to come around and find a different path that we want to travel down. And in the enterprise, this really comes together in what we call strategy agility as well. So it's one thing to say, okay, the business, we can respond very quickly, but we have to go the extra step in really analyzing our strategy. Traditionally, organizations develop, a 3, 5, 10-year strategy of where they're going to go, and kind of get fixed in on that. And we're noticing that we need to be able to respond much more quickly. We need to be able to analyze our strategy and recognize when the market dynamics have changed and when that strategy needs to adjust in the organization, and then quickly take that adjustment and apply that to the rest of the organization, all the way down to those individual teams, so that we're all running down that right path together. And that's really the overall goal of agility in the enterprise, is both business agility and strategy agility in being able to align all of our teams towards those goals. So when it comes to implementing those, there's two major components within the framework that we're going to focus on today to discuss the importance of, and that one is on roadmaps and looking at our product roadmaps and roadmaps for our organizations and how they can either help us or hurt us in our path towards true business agility and strategy agility. And then we'll look at our budgets and our capacity, and looking at what we call lean budgets, and being able to align the budgets to our value streams and to our capacity that we have to execute. And we'll talk about how each of these two components can really help or hinder our progress towards that true business agility and strategy agility. So first, if we start taking a look at roadmaps, the way that the product road mapping has worked in history is that organizations would get together, get all of our product management together, and do some market studies and really spend a lot of time focusing on, okay, what does the market tell us? What do the customers tell us? What are the trends in the market? And let's just study long and hard and make sure that we define all of the right requirements in the direction that we want to go, and we're going to carve in stone for the next 3 to 5 years. Here's our product roadmap of where we're going to go. Here's all the features that we think everybody wants. Here's all the functionality, and we're going to carve that out, and we'll kind of let the world know some of the little bits about that, and then behind the scenes, we go into finer detail on our carving, and we just get this really carved out. And as it benefits us, not too soon, because we don't want our competitors to know fully, we'll start to release views of our carved in stone roadmap as it benefits us to really start to market those products that we're going to roll out. So we just have to do a lot of studying and give that carved in stone. And if we get it right, then we're just really going to, deliver good products. Our customers are going to love it, and we're going to make lots of money on that. And historically, this has actually worked well for one reason in particular. If we look at, well, there's actually two major reasons. The first one being that knowledge in the world, historically over time, if we look back to the early 1900s, where this concept of road mapping and business really came about, knowledge in the world was fairly slow in its growth. It doubled about every 100 years, was what the knowledge growth rate was in the world at that time. And even into the 40s and 50s and 60s, we see that, knowledge started to pick up a little bit, but it was still about every 25 years that knowledge was doubling, all the way up into the 80s, where knowledge doubled about every year or so. And that's still somewhat manageable, right? We can still go back to our stone tablets there, and we can carve out at least a year in advance what our roadmap is going to be, because we have the knowledge, it's there. And we also had the luxury that knowledge was really kind of held in these ivory towers, right? It was the elite few that had the privilege of going to elite universities around the world that would gain most of the knowledge. Those elite groups would then hire into these enterprises, and these large enterprises, they could kind of do some of their own studies and some of their own research, and they could contain that knowledge, and as they carved that into their roadmaps, they could choose when it was beneficial for them to release the understanding of that knowledge to the rest of the world. So I could, as an enterprise, I could say, okay, I've invested a certain amount in the research for this product. Therefore, I want to make sure that I maximize my return on that. And yes, I've got this great other idea here, but I'm going to hold on to that. I don't want the world to quite know about that just yet, because I haven't really maximized the value out of the last release that I had. And so I'm going to hold on to that. And they had that luxury and ability to do that, because that knowledge was really confined on its availability, and they were able to control that release of the knowledge. Well, if we fast forward a little bit more into today's modern world, we look at now, knowledge in the world isn't doubling every year or every 25 years or every 100 years like it was before. Now, knowledge is doubling about every 11 to 12 hours. Think about that for a minute. The knowledge in the world is doubling about every 11 to 12 hours. Not only is the knowledge doubling every 11 to 12 hours, but that knowledge is now disseminated across everybody. Everybody has a cell phone, a smartphone, that they can go online and they can do research and they can find information about. Almost everybody has access to education now. Even in basic elementary school, they have computers and they have the internet and they have connection to this online learning. The types of education that is being taught to our students at earlier and earlier and earlier ages are things that used to be reserved for university type level and stuff. So this availability, this mass availability of knowledge, now the enterprises don't have the luxury of saying, I found this new idea and I'm going to hold on to this until I maximize the value before. Instead, it's kind of reversed. Now the knowledge is in the hands of the masses, and you have the customers and the mass people saying, I know this is available. I want it, and I want it now. And you need to provide this now. And if you're not going to, then I'm going to go to the next the next competitor who is going to give me that knowledge and give me that functionality right away as soon as possible. So it's totally changed our world when it comes to road mapping. Having these old carved in stone road maps here where we can just spend enough time and make sure that we carve it out right, and then we can kind of get those teams on that one single path and just release them and let them run. Unfortunately, that world is long gone. And now we're in that age where we need to be able to adapt to this rapid growing knowledge. So, what do we do with our roadmaps? What do we need to do? Well, this changes our roadmaps. So, in SAFE, we have what we call a multiple planning horizon view that we need to take. And that's where we understand that really the only roadmap that can be carved in stone and can be committed to is what is it that we're executing on in the here and now, kind of that near term, today what we're executing, maybe in the next month or two, kind of what we're executing there. And that's our fixed carved in stone roadmap. But the rest of it, when we look at the short term, 3 to 4 months out, 6 months, 8 months, look at the multi-year horizon and vision there, we do need to understand what is the possibility there, but we need to understand that there's multiple possibilities, and our roadmaps need to account for that, and also need to be able to account for all this new knowledge and growth that's coming about. So we move away from that annual kind of traditional annual budgeting and planning for our roadmaps into more of this rolling wave planning, where every few months we're saying, okay, what has changed? What have we learned that's new? How do we need to readjust our roadmap going forward? And not only readjust our roadmaps going forward, but our budgets. And then also, how do we match that to our capacity? We don't have unlimited capacity, so we can no longer just say, okay, we'll bring all of these efforts in and we'll just have unlimited intake. We need to understand what's the capacity we have to execute. And really that translates to our budgets, right? So instead of having a fixed budget with a fixed capacity towards specific efforts, we need to say, okay, here's where we think that we're going to align that capacity to. Now we need to look and see, okay, how do we need to adjust that? How do we need to shift that based upon that new learning that's come in over the last sometimes even couple days or couple weeks into couple months, and be able to adjust that? And in order to do this, it really requires a strong team, a strong group of people working on this. So we have several roles within the Scaled Agile framework that really are central to this. Really in the middle, we have product management, who's really responsible for sensing the market, looking at those roadmaps, building those roadmaps, and seeing what the possibilities are. Working with the business owners, the customers, solution managers, everyone really getting focused on those roadmaps. And then also working with the product owners on what are some of the finer grained bits and pieces of that. But then also working with the roles like the RTEs and the Scrum Masters and our lean portfolio management group to say, what are our budgets? How are they aligned to capacity? What capacity do we have available? With these new ideas, what if we change how that is allocated? What is that going to look like? What is that going to impact? So we have several key events that really help us to do this. One is our strategic portfolio review, where we're going to go through and say, hey, do we need to make changes to our strategy? Has the market changed significantly? What are those new ideas coming through? Then we compare that with our portfolio sync, where we say, how are we doing on our execution so far? Those were the ideas that we had. As we execute, are we learning something new from that? What's the data tell us? Are we on the right path? Do we need to adjust and change based off of the learning that we've had from the execution? And then we combine this with a concept that we call participatory budgeting, which is saying, hey, we have all these new ideas, things that have come in. What's the best way to align our budget to execute against those? What do we think is going to be the biggest bang for the buck in the next several PIs that we're going to execute? Where do we think that we need to make adjustments and actually align to that? So all this comes together then, all of this information that comes in from all these different points to then help us take a look and ask the question, what are the adjustments we need to make to our budgets? How do we need to adjust and shift our budgets to align to these market changes and these new ideas and this new knowledge that has been gained within the world. And really, budget, as I mentioned, translates into capacity. So looking at, in order to do those budget shifts, we really look at, okay, if we had these value streams where our budget was aligned to where we had, the majority of our budget, which translates to capacity, aligned to value stream 3 and value stream 1, and then value stream 2 and 4 are just kind of minor pieces of that. Excuse me. But as knowledge has come in, we've learned that, well, the market says that actually value stream 4 and value stream 2, there's more opportunity there. We really need to invest more heavily there. We need to explore these ideas, and let's transfer some of that capacity or some of the budget from value stream 3 and value stream 1, and we'll transfer that over to those other value streams. So now we can actually execute against those new ideas and be able to better orient the teams in their high performing capacity, to run down that correct path. And that's really what this lean budgeting process is all about, and being able to align those capacities to those new ideas. So the question that you should be asking at this point then, that I ask is, well, but how do we know all the impacts? If we do some of this shifting around, if we have these new ideas that come in and we see that, oh, hey, that's a really cool idea and we should test that out. Well, what if we take some of our capacity over here and we allocate it to that? Are we going to impact an existing effort that we've been working on and that still is a good idea? And are we still going to be able to deliver against that? Do we need to swap out some other effort that we're working on? Because we know we have limited capacity. It's not unlimited, so we can only do so many things at once. So there's a lot of different impacts that we need to understand and look at. And how do we do that? How do we know that? And this is where we can look at some learning from our development engineer teams, a concept that we call model-based systems engineering. So if you're familiar with complicated hardware type of development, and even in software development, this is used in a lot of areas, but especially in complex hardware, cyber physical types of systems, where, for example, if I'm a company that builds, large machinery and tractors and excavators and stuff, if I have a new idea for a particular component on one of those machines, it costs millions of dollars to build one of those machines. I can't just go and explore an experiment of, hey, let's go build a few of these machines and try out some of that idea. And, oh man, that didn't work. Oh, bummer. We just spent, $50 million in experimenting on that, only to find out that it didn't work. So they have this concept of using models where they can either build digital models or they can build some smaller physical models for different things. Automotive uses this a lot, where they'll make clay models of the designs of the cars and stuff first to kind of model out and see what that looks like. So what if we had the ability in matching our capacity and looking at the new knowledge and the new ideas, what if we could model that out? What if we had a way and a tool that allowed us to visualize and see, here's all of our capacity, here's the skill sets that the teams have, here's the new ideas that we have. Can we match that up to the skill sets? Can we match that up to the capacity? And if we end up shifting capacity to these new ideas, which current ideas that we're executing does that affect? Where are we going to drop things? Where do we need to make those trade-offs? What does that look like? That would be a fantastic tool to be able to have. And at this point, I think I'll turn it over to Lloyd, who can kind of walk you through some of the possibilities there.
All right, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it, and let me just say publicly, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you over the last couple of weeks as we've coordinated content for this particular meeting. Let me make sure that we're sharing here. Can you guys see my screen?
I can see it, yes.
Perfect. Okay. I've got just a couple of slides here in about 12 minutes because I want to make sure that we're leaving time for questions as well. The first thing I really want to say is The concepts that I'm going to be talking about, and I am going to be talking about principles and concepts of capacity planning in a scaled agile environment here. These are not just theory. We've got clients that are using these all over the globe. Roughly 40% of our clients are external to the US, but it cuts across industry here as well. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I want to make sure you understand that people are actually doing what I'm about to show you tactically, and it's working well for them. They're making sure that their teams and their people together are constantly working on the highest priority items without burning out their teams. And really, here's the approach. Essentially, I loved what you had to say, about roadmap planning. We're huge advocates of making sure that roadmaps are tied to capacity. Lots of times, I'm sure that everybody here on the call has seen some fabulous roadmaps in PowerPoint diagrams or Visio, whatever they may be in. But if they're not tied to capacity, I would submit to you that they may be wish lists, right? Because if you haven't actually compared your ability to execute against those roadmaps and deliver, then how do you know if you're comfortable committing to that to an executive board, for example? And so the concept that we espouse, which again, we believe this to be a very healthy way to do capacity planning at a portfolio level, is let LPM and value stream management work in parallel, right? Up top here, aligning the work. You align it to your strategic themes, to your OKRs, and you're aligning your capacity that way. This is a parallel exercise. All the while, your teams down here, they're working with whatever ALM tool they've got, Jira, ADO, whatever that may be, right? But the concept is very simple. The epic owners, they should size the epics. We're big fans of sizing things by teams and by role. Very few of the customers that we work with have fully cross-functional arts. And so it's always teams that end up gating delivery, those individual skill sets that Jim alluded to, which are typically associated with teams, right? And so if you size your work by team and by role, you're going to be able to see where your bottlenecks are. Then you simply sequence your epics by your available capacity, obviously your WSJF in terms of your cost of delay, that priority, but also according to the guardrail impacts. And Jim alluded to that as well, and I'll show you that. The arts then just deliver, right? They deliver according to the roadmap sequence that's been defined over here by fully transparent coordination between value stream management and LPM. All right, this other concept too, that analyzing these interrelated portfolio impacts, it really needs to be done before you sequence your epics. I would submit to you, and I'm happy to send you all at least references that are out on Scaled Agile Inc. Relative to capacity planning at a portfolio level, above the team level, if you will. It's capacity that gates flow. It's always that way. If you don't believe it, just ask your CIO. What gates flow? Is it funding or is it people, right? And I get the fact that in essence, budget represents capacity, but it's always your people, whether they're in teams or supporting organizations like compliance, audit, regulatory, legal, they're the ones that are going to gate delivery. With that said, though, you can't ignore the impacts here, right? If you have certain work that you think is next in the queue, but it's going to blow away your the CapEx targets that your CFO has set for you, you better go have that discussion, right? You obviously need to be looking at things like change management. How much change are you pushing into the enterprise? We have clients all the time that tell us that since their teams have moved to more agile or safe scaled agile delivery, they're flooding their ops teams with too much new capability, and they actually have to dial back, right? Based on their ability simply to absorb change. So you've got to be aware of everything that's going on in the enterprise while you're doing that. The last thing I'll mention here is that the concepts I'm about to show with you, this is not a heavy lift. Look, this capacity planning, it's something that should be going on all the time in a scaled agile environment. These concepts are especially relevant if you're talking about hybrid delivery as well. but we're talking 1 to 2 hours a month in capacity planning, which most teams are trying to do anyway. They're typically trying to get a handle on this through distributed Excel spreadsheets. People are always well-intentioned, but having this centralized and being able to manage this holistically, as I'll show you, benefits everyone. No one more than the people and teams themselves, who it's so common for us to be able to go into organizations and see that even though they're delivering through an agile methodology, or even sometimes through a safe methodology, we're hearing stories about teams that are putting in 55, 60 hours a week regularly. I would submit to you there's a lot wrong with that, not the least of which is that that's a horrible retention plan. So let me show you just a couple of things here tactically from an automation perspective that should be very helpful. Assuming that you've got a tool in here that can show you essentially what your roadmaps look like. I want to show you the benefit of tying your roadmaps to capacity. I'm going to look at this from a Kanban perspective. And the first thing I want to show you is how easy it should be to make sure that your work is aligned with whatever your portfolio planning attributes are. Typically strategic themes. Am I cost reducing? Am I risk mitigation? What's my planning horizon? Am I LPM or local in terms of funding authorization, that sort of thing? What portfolio is funding us? What value stream? So you need to be able to do that, because as you go into your epics, you'll see that you want to make sure that your capacity, your teams are aligned with those planning attributes. What our automation lets you do is to take a very streamlined approach to this. We allow you, for example, and I just popped into any given epic here, right? But to say, hey, I've got teams from different arts with entirely different velocities, and I'm going to put them on a common relative timeline, right? These are the skills that I need at a team level to deliver this work. Some of these are shared services. Data analytics is very common, to have as a shared service. You can come in here and say, I want to do these high level estimates by points, right? Or by percentage FTE, right? If you're talking about people, and you are in this case, epic owners, perhaps compliance, these are hours, right? So our automation allows you to come in here and forecast however you would like, but it's going to put it on a common timeline, which is particularly handy from a planning perspective. The costs come along for the ride, right? Because people have rates, teams have rates. So very easy to come in here. We deliberately designed our interface to look and feel like Excel. Very easy to add and adjust here. So you come in here, as is best practice outlined by Scaled Agile, and simply size your work with the understanding that over time, you're going to elaborate that. You're going to refine these over time, and these estimates will get better and better as you get closer and closer to the PI planning events that actually start to decompose this work, right? We also track financials in here, which we feel is very, very important. Look, you have to be able to come in here and say, what large CapEx expenses on a common timeline are we likely to see here, right? Am I going to drop $300,000 on hardware, software, whatever that may be, right? Once you size your work, you unlock this ability to have the kind of roadmap models that Jim was alluding to. You can have as many of these models as you want. These are digital twins of your portfolio. If you look at creating one of these, they take about 5 to 10 minutes to create, but very easy to come in here and see all of your work, right? You can see where it is from a Kanban perspective, and down below, you get to see the resources, the teams, the people that are going to deliver that work. And let me show you the advantage of this. Again, you can come in here and make all the changes that you want. This is not a sandbox environment. We offer sandbox environments, but this is a digital twin of your environment. And you can note things like, look, from an art perspective, I thought it was doing okay, but actually down here, certain teams are getting creamed. So, what is it that is pushing, that work? And very easy to come in here and say, hey, from a perspective of the kind of work that I want to move, I can't really move my regulatory work, but I might be able to move something like Quicksilver 7, right? So as you push this out, you'll immediately see in real time the interactive impacts, not only on those teams, but all the supporting services. Month by month, you can do this week by week, day by day. This is what was their capacity utilization before this move, after this move, before this move, and after this move. And you may see here where in some cases you're actually making the situation worse, right? By going out and shifting these things. You can crash work. You can come in here and look at this from a person perspective, saying, hey, we're going to be short, essentially this many FTE, if we conduct our business this way. It's a fabulous way to come in and say, what should we do? If there's new work, right? If you're in the analyzing phase and you want to come in here and say, hey, when can I start this new opportunity that we're considering? Tempus will actually come in here and show you right away when you can start this work, right? And what the resource utilizations are. If you need all these people, if you can get by with less, it'll push your start date up 6-8 months, right? But you'll know where you're going to have issues, right? In this case, we're going to have them with Julianne and with Abigail, right? So these kinds of things from a modeling perspective are just particularly helpful from a I want to introduce new work. What can I do? Or you can come in here and just shut off whole bodies of work. I want to shut off everything that's non-discretionary inside of this portfolio to free up capacity so that I can perhaps introduce this new work that's now a new priority. All the while, you're doing this. The financials get updated as well. So when you're shifting these things, all of your financials, your benefits, your costs associated with that, you get to have comfortable discussions, data-driven discussions with your executives about what my CapEx impacts are, what my labor impacts are. So this live interaction is something that really drives people to us from a portfolio capacity planning perspective. Once you get this, you also have the alignment and transparency that is referenced so often in the Scaled Agile framework. If you're an RTE and you're looking at the individual teams that you have here, you get to see everything that they're working on. You can see their WIP limits. This is what's in the pipeline right now. This is how you're currently aligned. Everywhere that it's red, you've got over allocations for your teams and risk the ability to actually deliver that work. You get to view this however you would like. Your functional managers that are supporting you from supporting organizations, they get the same kind of view. If I'm dependent on cybersecurity engineers, I can see all of them here, but rolled up, I can tell I've got capacity. I'm just not distributing my work well across my people, right? All of these things are the advantages of planning capacity at a portfolio level from a product management perspective. If I want to see the various things that are in the queue, here's all the epics. Here's those that are in a ready state. Let's go in and look and say, why is this ready? Why do I have red here, right? Again, my people aren't over allocated here. What else has their manager put them on since they agreed to me that they would be supporting my epic delivery? Epic owners love this. I mean, it's their responsibility to shepherd work through the queue, right? And so to have these kind of views is particularly helpful. These, of course, roll up into nice dashboards where you get to see your financials, your capacity risks, detailed flow distribution, all of these things. Time doesn't really permit, but we have detailed skills tracking and management as well. So if you need to replace someone on your team, if you've got a team of 6 people and one of your QA folks that's on that team is going to be leaving the enterprise for whatever reason, how easy is it to go in and look at skills across the organization and say who would be a good fit to replace that person? So with that said, let me sort of bring this back to a close here. Another thing that can be really helpful is integrations. We are ranked #1 in the Gartner Magic Quadrant and have been now for years in terms of resource and capacity planning. We're in the Adaptive Portfolio Management and Reporting MQ. I would encourage you to go out and look at that. We're happy to to share that with you. But we're also #1 in integrations because our teams do this so often. These are just sort of, I won't say they're out of the box, but pretty much out of the box, right? We have a custom API here. And so as you look here, obviously Jira, ADO, Power BI, but all of these things we integrate with, because when you start looking at planning capacity, it's critical that you understand what really gates flow. And anything that you can do to enhance both adoption and execution from an integration perspective is helpful. So I want to leave some time for questions here. I appreciate you guys obviously coming today. Please know that we will, as Samantha said, be sending out the links to be able to watch this. But make sure that you understand that we do free trials, right? If you guys want to have this discussion, just respond to that email or reach out to us on prosymmetry.com. I would encourage you to do that. You're likely on here for a reason, right? Because you've been trying to either figure out how to better coordinate our value streams, whatever that discussion might be. I can assure you that capacity planning will help that. Also, if you're in a hybrid environment, nothing will help you transition easier into a more effective hybrid environment or to a full-scale Agile environment other than planning capacity, because you probably saw in that model, right? You can plan projects right next to epics, the same concept. You just size your work, right? Size your work, accelerate your flow virtually, and then go execute. All right, let me pause here and say, Sam, I don't know if you've got some questions. I'll stop sharing here.
Yeah, so this was a really good question that came in, Jim, specifically during or in your team effort slide of your slide deck. When your organization does not have product managers, who owns those different tasks that is on that specific slide?
Yeah, so that's gonna depend on how your organization is structured, but typically the product function, it's hard to give an answer outside of the framework roles that I work with, but each organization has their different structure of roles when they come in. So it's going to depend on who's responsible for developing those roadmaps for your product groups, and how they work and function.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to ask as well is, Lloyd, this may be more for you, but Jim, I could definitely see you having an opinion on this as well, is, knowing that the Agile world kind of operates in that team space. How are we defining capacity, both from the team perspective, from the individual perspective? What is your recommendation for defining that capacity? Is it as simple as hours or FTE or headcount on team? How do you go about that when you're kind of thinking about the comparison?
So great question, and I'll be quick in answering that. When it comes to people, we recommend using 20-80 hours a year, right? And because our automation allows you to forecast either by FTE, right, or by hours, or by percentage FTE, that's sort of straightforward. Teams are same way. Teams are comprised of people. Those people have rates. When you build that capacity into the system, you'll start to forecast at a team level, right? And so teams, in fact, will have a rate that's whatever, $4,000 an hour versus $200 an hour based on how many people you have on your team, right? But the capacity is the same thing. They're tied to story points, which is tied to their velocity. So as you're putting in capacity in our software, we'll ask you, what's the team velocity, right? And it's very easy to change that over time. It's also very easy to adjust the complexion of your team, so the rates will change easily as well. So essentially, you want to forecast people by hours or FTE. You want to forecast teams by story or percentage FTE. And our automation lets you do that, again, together on a common timeline.
Awesome. Awesome. And of course, we have a flood of questions here at the end. So with that said, we are going to be taking a lot of these questions and answering them outside of this webinar. But I always like to end our webinars on one question in particular, and that is, at the most basic level, both Jim and Lloyd or one or the other, what is the easiest way to get started? Knowing that capacity planning, may potentially not always align with that agile, with that safe, what is the easiest way to get started?
So Jim, I'd love to hear you weigh in on this as well, but this is what I would say. I would say start where you are, right? If you're a functional manager, just meet the world where you're at. Start to lay out capacity for your team. Break out what percentage of capacity they usually spend on KTLO. That way you can have informed, data-driven discussions with people coming to you with requests saying, hey, I've only got this much time left, or I'm not going to meet my SLAs, right? If you're a product manager or an Epic owner, the same kind of thing. Just start sizing your work, right? And you'll then begin to see, the people that you need to go talk to, who own those relationships, who own the shared services, or the release train engineers or value stream management, right? But you'll begin to get a picture, right? And what this does is it provides data-driven discussions, right? When you go into these planning events that Jim referenced, the portfolio sync, the strategic business reviews, it's so helpful in pulling the emotion out of those meetings to say, look, we've got some decisions to make here. And here's the data that's driving that. By the way, it's not my data. This data comes directly from the owners of these teams and resource and what they're working on. We're happy to shift that, but let's understand what the ramifications are. And it's always, always, always about capacity. Jim.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Starting where you're at, and one of the great things about this is it lets you model out not just your agile release trains, or not just your projects and those that are still aligned to traditional projects, which kind of goes back to the previous question, who in a traditional organization, project managers, program managers, and those sorts are going to be looking at, doing this capacity understanding and matching. But it allows you to model both together. So if we have a part of the organization that have launched Agile release trains and they're started down the path of scaled Agile in one particular area of the organization, you can model out your Agile release trains and your value streams and have that structure in there. But in the areas of your organization that are still doing traditional program and project management, you can still model out the programs and projects alongside with your Agile release trains. So you can go through that migration, and it's not an all or nothing sort of experience that you have to go through.
Yeah, I like that approach. Leverage what you can. All right, awesome. Well, with that said, I know we kept everyone a little bit over time today, so thank you so much for joining us. Again, the recording will be sent to you probably tomorrow. It will also be available on our YouTube channel. You could go to YouTube and just search for Prosymmetry. And with that said, thank you for joining us today. Lloyd, Jim, thank you for your time. Great presentation. We'll all talk soon. Bye-bye.